Ever get that feeling in certain forests? Like they really don't want you to enter? That every rustle of leaves isn't just the wind, but a warning? Every shadow, a glimpse of something ancient, something territorial watching you? What if that clear path you're following only leads you deeper into an embrace you can't escape? What if the old stories are true? That deep within the most confusing, bewildering woodlands, spectral sentinels stand guard. Their only job? To protect the ancient heart of the wild, and to make sure that anyone who trespasses with bad intentions or simply loses their way becomes another chilling story whispered among the trees. There's something about the unknown that pulls us in, isn't there? Those edges of the map where reality gets a little fuzzy and myth starts to take over. Forests, especially, have a powerful grip on our imagination. They're places of shelter, sure, but also profound mystery and, let's be honest, sometimes deep dread. They're the backdrop for our oldest fairy tales, the birthplace of folklore, and often, the silent witnesses to things we'd rather not talk about in the daylight. And in the world of video games, few places capture this eerie allure quite like the Lost Woods from the Legend of Zelda series, a place of enchantment, danger, and some pretty spooky transformations. But this idea of a haunted, guarded forest? It's not just something dreamed up for a game. Oh no, it stretches back centuries, echoing in hushed tales told around flickering campfires, in the superstitions of communities living right on the edge of vast, untamed wilderness. We're talking real-world forests, soaked in sorrow, steeped in tragedy, and supposedly patrolled by spectral guardians or vengeful spirits. Tonight, we're heading right into the heart of this enigma. First, we'll try to find our way through the disorienting paths of Hyrule's most infamous woodland, uncovering the legends of its ghostly protectors and the grim fate that awaits those who wander too far. Then, with that in mind, we'll step from the screen into the shadows of our own world. We'll explore the chilling reputations of actual haunted forests, places where the wind carries more than just the scent of pine and damp earth, places where local lore swears unseen eyes watch your every move, and where ghostly guardians are said to enforce ancient, unspoken laws. What's the truth behind these legends? Are they just stories, meant to entertain or warn us off? Or do they hint at something deeper, something about the nature of these wild places, and maybe something about ourselves? Join us as we try to reveal the ghost that guards the forest in all its many forms. The Lost Woods. Just the name itself makes you feel a bit turned around, doesn't it? It sounds like a place designed not to be navigated, but to trap you. For decades, anyone playing The Legend of Zelda has felt that creeping, then overwhelming sense of dread when stepping into its leafy corridors. It's more than just trees and paths. It's a character, a living puzzle box that fights back when you try to enter. Its first appearances were pretty simple, just pixelated mazes that could frustrate you to no end. But as the series grew, so did the complexity and the eerie atmosphere of the Lost Woods. In A Link to the Past, it was a place of perpetual twilight, hiding the Master's sword. Its paths looped back on themselves, a real test of your memory. The music, often whimsical but with that unsettling undercurrent, became iconic, like a siren song luring you deeper. You just knew, instinctively, this wasn't a friendly place if you weren't prepared. It was a filter, a trial by confusion. Then came Ocarina of Time, and the Lost Woods hit a new level of mystery and storytelling. Here, it was the vibrant, yet strangely isolated home of the Kokiri, the kids who never grow up, protected by the great Deku Tree. But even for them, the deeper parts of the woods were off limits, a place where you could lose yourself not just physically, but maybe existentially. The design was clever. You had to take specific tunnels in the right order, guided by the faint sound of Saria's song. One wrong turn, and poof, you were back at the entrance, the forest seemingly resetting itself, almost mocking you. This constant trial and error, the threat of being sent back, made you feel genuinely lost, like you were being outsmarted by something ancient hidden in the landscape itself. The atmosphere was thick with an almost tangible magic. Light streamed through the dense leaves, lighting up dancing dust motes, while that ever-present, slightly sad tune emphasized the isolation. It felt like a place where time worked differently, where the rules of the outside world didn't apply. This Lost Woods wasn't just a spot on the map. It was a spiritual doorway, a place you entered to prove you were worthy or to find profound, often dangerous, knowledge. It felt ancient, filled with a wisdom and a sadness that hinted at untold stories hidden deep within its heartwood. In later games, the Lost Woods kept its role as a recurring puzzle. In Twilight Princess, it was darker, more corrupted, wrapped in an oppressive twilight that matched the game's gloomy tone. The paths were hidden by a thick, disorienting fog, and the sense of menace was something you could almost taste. You had to rely on instinct, subtle clues in the environment, or even animal senses to find your way, hammering home the idea that normal human perception just wasn't enough in there. In Breath of the Wild, the Lost Woods became arguably its most challenging version. Surrounded by the treacherous Korok forest, the woods themselves were protected by an almost living mist. Stray from the correct path, even for a second, and the fog would swallow Link, teleporting him back to the entrance. The trick was to follow the direction of wind-blown embers from torches, a delicate, intense process that demanded constant attention. This version really emphasized the woods as a natural fortress, actively pushing away anyone it didn't deem worthy to approach the Great Deku Tree and the Master Sword. So what's the big deal with these woods? What do they really represent? It's the unknown, the challenges that lie just beyond what's familiar. It's a place of initiation, where the hero has to face not just physical obstacles, but also the mental strain of being lost and alone. It's often a gateway to sacred or powerful locations, suggesting that true wisdom and strength are found by navigating through confusion and doubt. The very act of getting lost, and then finding your way, becomes a metaphor for growth and discovering hidden truths. The woods test your resolve, patience, and intuition, all essential qualities for any hero. And within this bewildering labyrinth, whispers of even stranger legends start to grow, legends of those who failed the test and became something else. The endless twilight and confusing paths of the Lost Woods aren't its only dangers. A more chilling legend seeps through its shaded depths, the story of transformation. It's about how those who get truly lost, those who give in to the forest's bewildering embrace without protection or a clear purpose, are cursed to become something else entirely. They become the spectral, often sorrowful, guardians and inhabitants of the woods itself. The most well-known of these transformed beings are the Stalfos. These skeletal warriors, decked out in ancient armor and wielding rusty weapons, are a common sight in Hyrule's dungeons, but their origin story is deeply connected to the Lost Woods. In Ocarina of Time, the lore is pretty clear. Adults who wander into the Lost Woods and lose their way are doomed to become Stalfos. Imagine the horror, not just death, but an undeath, an eternity spent as a clattering skeleton, mindlessly patrolling the very place that stole your life and identity. This serves a double purpose in the game. It's a stark warning about the forest's dangers, and it gives a tragic backstory to these common enemies. They aren't just monsters. They're what's left of failed adventurers, cautionary tales made of bone and blade. Their presence adds a layer of sadness to the woods, a constant reminder of the price of getting lost. Then there are the Skull Kids. More mischievous than outright evil, at least at first. These small, wooden-masked figures are also said to be children who got lost in the woods. Unlike the Stalfos, who are a grimmer, more warlike form of undeath, Skull Kids seem to represent a kind of stunted development, a playful but ultimately sad existence. They play their flutes, lead travelers astray with their games, and almost seem like extensions of the forest's trickster spirit. In Majora's Mask, a Skull Kid, twisted by the power of a cursed artifact, becomes a major villain, showing the potential for these lost souls to harbor deep resentment and destructive power. Their story is a sad one, hinting at a childhood stolen and replaced with an unending, lonely life in the woods. They're like the lost boys of Hyrule, but with a much darker side. These transformations don't seem to be random acts of cruelty by the forest. Instead, they feel like part of its inherent magical properties, a kind of ecological or mystical process. The woods absorb and repurpose those who can't handle its complexities. It's a stark illustration of survival of the fittest on a metaphysical level. Only those with a strong sense of self, a guiding purpose, like Link looking for the Master Sword, or the natural protection of forest spirits, like the kokiri, can resist this transformative pull. The Master Sword itself, often hidden deep within the lost woods or a connected sacred grove, adds another layer to this idea of guardianship. The woods act as a natural trial, a series of tests you have to pass to prove you're worthy of wielding such a powerful, sacred weapon. The Stalfos and other hostile creatures, then, can be seen as unwitting guardians, testing the resolve and skill of anyone who seeks the blade of evil's bane. Their aggression, born from their cursed state, inadvertently helps protect the relic. However, not all spiritual presence in the Lost Woods is evil or cursed. The Great Deku Tree, a giant, ancient, and living tree, often serves as the kind guardian spirit of the forest and its inhabitants, especially the Kokiri. He is a source of wisdom, life, and protection, a clear contrast to the restless spirits of the Stalfos. His presence suggests a duality within the woods. It's a place of immense danger and sorrow, but also of deep sacredness and life-giving power. The Deku Tree represents the conscious, protective aspect of the forest, while the Stalfos and Skull Kids might represent its unconscious, reactive, and perhaps even sorrowful side. These spectral guardians, whether by curse or by nature, are essential to the identity of the Lost Woods, making it a place where the veil between worlds feels dangerously thin, and where every shadow might just be a former traveler, now bound to the trees forever. The detailed lore of the Lost Woods, with its spectral guardians and transformative curses, is definitely captivating. It taps into a primal fear of getting lost, of losing yourself not just physically, but in your very soul. But as we look closer at these digital legends, a fascinating question pops up. Are these ideas purely from the minds of imaginative game designers? Or do they connect with something far older, something woven into human storytelling across cultures and centuries? Could it be that the Stalfos, the Skull Kids, and the eerie, almost living nature of the Lost Woods aren't entirely new creations, but rather digital versions of archetypes that have haunted our imaginations for thousands of years? When we step away from the screen and into the historical accounts and folklore of our own world, the similarities are undeniable and, frankly, a bit unsettling. The idea of a forest that actively misleads travelers, that guards its secrets with a jealous, sometimes malicious, intelligence, that's not unique to Hyrule. Neither is the concept of spirits, spectral or otherwise, who act as its protectors, its enforcers, or its eternally tormented residents. Ancient cultures all over the world, many of whom lived much closer to, and often in more conflict with, vast, untamed woodlands than we do today, developed rich collections of myths and legends about these mysterious places. These weren't just casual tales for entertainment. They were often attempts to make sense of the dangers of the wilderness, the risk of getting lost, of animal attacks, of sudden illness, or simply the profound psychological impact of being surrounded by an environment that feels alien and indifferent to humans. They were also, quite often, expressions of respect, even reverence, for the power and holiness of nature. Disrespect the forest, take more than you need, or enter forbidden groves, and you might just face the wrath of its unseen protectors. So, as we move from the pixelated paths of Hyrule to the shadowed trails of Earth's most notorious woodlands, let's keep in mind the themes we've uncovered: the bewildering maze, the spectral sentinel, the transformative curse, and the forest as a threshold where the ordinary rules no longer apply. We might find that the ghosts guarding the forest aren't just a product of game design, but a persistent theme in human experience, a reflection of our enduring fascination with, and fear of, the deep, dark woods. The journey into these real-world lost woods begins now, and the tales they hold are, in many ways, even more chilling than their digital counterparts. Making the leap from the conceptual dread of Hyrule's lost woods to the genuine unease of Earth's haunted forests is a journey into a different kind of fear, one rooted not in programmed code, but in generations of human experience, whispered warnings, and unsettling encounters. These are places where history, folklore, and the very land itself conspire to create an atmosphere thick with mystery and a sense of, I should not be here. One of the most infamous is Aokigahara Forest in Japan, often grimly known as the Suicide Forest. Lying at the base of Mount Fuji, Aokigahara is a dense, sprawling woodland. Its volcanic rock floor absorbs sound, creating an unnerving, heavy silence. The trees grow twisted and packed together, making it incredibly easy to get disoriented and lost. But its notoriety goes far beyond its confusing layout. For decades, it has been a place where many people have chosen to end their lives, and this tragic legacy has deeply stained its reputation. Folklore speaks of eerie, the tormented ghosts of those who died in anger, sorrow, or with unfinished business, lingering among the trees. It's said these spirits actively try to lure despondent visitors deeper into the woods, making sure they never leave. There are also tales of yokai, more ancient nature spirits, who might view intrusions with hostility, especially from those who disrespect the woods or disturb the resting places of the dead. Aokigahara is filled with a profound sorrow, but also an undeniable feeling of unease, as if the collective grief of the place has become a palpable presence. Authorities even put up signs urging visitors to reconsider, a modern attempt to combat an ancient sorrow that clings to the trees like moss. Across the globe in Romania lies Hoia Baciu Forest, often called the Bermuda Triangle of Romania. This relatively small patch of woodland near Cluj-Napoca has gained international fame for a baffling array of paranormal claims. Visitors report intense feelings of anxiety, nausea, and the distinct sense of being watched. Electronic devices mysteriously fail, and strange lights or orbs are frequently photographed. Perhaps most unsettling are the tales of missing time, or people emerging from the forest with no memory of hours spent within its bounds. The trees themselves often grow in bizarre, twisted patterns, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Local legends speak of a shepherd who vanished into the forest with his flock of 200 sheep, never to be seen again. Some attribute the phenomena to ancient spirits, UFO activity, or even a gateway to another dimension. The clearing, a near-perfect circular area where little grows, is considered the epicenter of these strange happenings. Whatever the cause, Hoia Baciu embodies the idea of a forest that actively disrupts and disorients, much like the Lost Woods, leaving visitors questioning their own senses and the nature of reality itself. Germany's Black Forest, or Schwarzwald, is a vast, mountainous region famous for its dense evergreen forests and picturesque villages. While it's the setting for many charming cuckoo clocks and Grimm Brothers fairy tales like Hansel and Gretel, it also holds a darker, more ancient folklore. The sheer density of the canopy in many parts creates a perpetual gloom, and it's easy to see how such an environment could birth tales of lurking dangers. Legends speak of werewolves, sorcerers, and water nixies living in its depths. The Waldgeister, or forest spirits, common in broader European folklore, are certainly at home here. They're believed to be guardians of the trees and animals, capable of leading unwary travelers astray or punishing those who harm the woods. The deep ravines and hidden caves within the Black Forest further lend themselves to stories of hidden lairs and forgotten evils. While not as overtly haunted in the modern sense as Aokigahara or Hoia Baciu, its ancient, brooding presence and rich folkloric tradition make it a powerful example of a lost wood in the European imagination. In England, Wickwood Forest in Oxfordshire carries a legacy of eerie encounters. Once a vast royal hunting ground, what remains of Wickwood is still filled with a sense of ancient mystery. Its most famous ghost story is that of Amy Robsart, the wife of Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, a favorite of Queen Elizabeth I. Amy died under mysterious circumstances, and her spirit is said to haunt Wickwood. Legend has it that she confronted her husband while he was hunting in the forest, predicting he would join her in death within 10 days, a prophecy that supposedly came true. Those who encounter her ghostly figure are said to suffer a similar fate, dying shortly after the sighting. Beyond this specific legend, Wickwood, like many ancient forests, has its share of tales of disorientation, unexplained sounds, and the feeling of being watched by unseen presences, the leftovers of centuries of human interaction with a wild and sometimes unforgiving landscape. Heading over to the United States, the Pine Barrens of southern New Jersey offer a unique and unsettling environment. This vast expanse of acidic, sandy soil supports a dense forest of pine and oak, mixed with cedar swamps and winding, tea-colored rivers. For centuries, it was a remote and sparsely populated area, home to isolated communities and a rich tapestry of folklore. Its most famous resident is the Jersey Devil, a creature described as a kangaroo-like beast with a horse's head, bat-like wings, horns, and a forked tail. For over 250 years, sightings of this creature, along with blood-curdling screams and unexplained livestock deaths, have terrified residents and fascinated cryptozoologists. Beyond the Jersey Devil, the Pine Barrens are known for their spongier roads that seem to lead nowhere, tales of ghostly encounters with spectral colonial-era figures, and the general feeling of isolation and otherworldliness that pervades the dense, sandy woodlands. It's a place where the boundary between folklore and potential reality feels particularly thin, a landscape that seems to actively guard its secrets. And these are just a handful of examples, echoes of the lost woods scattered across our own world. Each forest, with its unique history and local lore, adds to the universal theme that some woodlands are more than just collections of trees. They are keepers of memory, emotion, and mystery, places where the veil between our world and something else feels incredibly thin. They challenge our perceptions, stir up primal fears, and remind us that even in our modern age, there are still places that remain stubbornly, and perhaps wonderfully, wild and unexplained. And within these places, the idea of a guardian, a spectral sentinel, often takes root. The idea of a spirit or entity guarding a forest is as ancient and widespread as our relationship with the wilderness itself. These aren't always the cursed, sad figures like Zelda's Stalfos, but often powerful, primal beings who embody the spirit of the place. They act as its protectors, its deciders, and sometimes its vengeful enforcers. Their legends serve as a potent reminder of our place in the natural order, not as masters, but as cohabitants who need to show respect or face the music. In the heart of European folklore, especially in Germanic and Scandinavian traditions, we find the Waldgeister, or forest spirits. These beings are incredibly diverse, from kind sprites to formidable, sometimes dangerous, guardians. They are deeply tied to the health and sacredness of the woods. The Hyldemoer, or Elder Mother, from Danish folklore, is a spirit said to live within elder trees. To cut down an elder tree without first asking her permission was to invite misfortune, illness, or even death. This belief shows a deep-seated respect for individual trees as living entities with their own protective spirits. Similarly, in Estonia, the Metsik was believed to live in aspen trees. This spirit was known to protect the forest from harm, often by leading would-be loggers or hunters astray, causing them to become hopelessly lost, a direct parallel to the disorienting nature of the lost woods. These tales weren't just superstition. They were ecological wisdom wrapped in a story, encouraging sustainable practices and discouraging reckless destruction. Finnish mythology introduces Tapio, the ancient and revered god of the forest. He wasn't just a guardian, but the actual ruler of the woodlands, controlling the game animals and the bounty of the forest. Hunters would offer prayers and rituals to Tapio to ensure a successful hunt and safe passage through his domain. To displease Tapio was to risk starvation or becoming lost in the endless taiga. He represented the forest as a sovereign kingdom, with its own laws and its own powerful, often mysterious, ruler. His wife, Maliki, was the goddess of forests and the hunt, often shown as a skillful healer using forest herbs. Together, they embodied both the dangers and the life-giving properties of the wild. Across the Atlantic, in the lush rainforests of Brazil, the Curupira, or Capora, reigns as a potent protector of animals and trees. Often depicted with backward-facing feet to confuse trackers, and sometimes as a small, hairy child riding a wild boar, the Curupira is a formidable trickster. He despises those who hunt for sport or take more than they need from the forest. His punishments vary. He might mimic animal sounds to lead hunters into dangerous swamps, create illusions to disorient them, or even directly attack those who harm the rainforest. The parallels to the Lost Woods are striking. Disrespect the forest, and you risk becoming utterly lost, a plaything for its guardian. The Kurupura's legend serves as a strong ecological warning, especially vital in regions facing rampant deforestation. Slavic folklore gives us the Leshy, plural Leshy, a complex and often unpredictable forest spirit. The Leshy is a shapeshifter, able to appear as a tall man with hair and beard made of living grass, or as small as a blade of grass itself. He can also take the form of any animal or even a familiar person. Leshy are the masters of the forest and all its creatures. While not inherently evil, they are fiercely territorial and demand respect. They're known to lead travelers astray, tickle them to death, or abduct children. But they might also protect lost children or help those who show them proper respect. Offering a Leshy bread, salt, or a ribbon tied to a tree could ensure safe passage. The Leshy embodies the unpredictable, dual nature of the forest. It can be a source of danger or a place of sanctuary, depending on how you approach it. In Japanese Shinto beliefs, kodama are spirits that live in trees. Cutting down a tree containing a kodama is said to bring misfortune. These spirits are generally seen as a sign of a healthy, vibrant forest. While perhaps less overtly guardian-like in the punishing sense of the Kurupura, their presence signifies the sacredness of the trees and implies a subtle protective aura over the woodland. The more general concept of kami, nature spirits that inhabit all aspects of the natural world, including mountains, rivers, and forests, reinforces this idea of inherent holiness and spiritual presence within wild places. And it's not just these. Indigenous cultures across North America have rich traditions of nature spirits and guardians tied to specific landscapes, animals, and plants, emphasizing a deep spiritual connection and a responsibility to care for the land. From the jungle spirits of Southeast Asia to the Fey folk of Celtic lands who guard sacred groves and ancient pathways, the theme of a spiritual protector of the wild is remarkably consistent. What role do these ethereal sentinels play? They are, first and foremost, living embodiments of the forest's power and mystery. They act as go-betweens for the human world and the untamed wild, reminding us that nature isn't just a passive resource, but an active, often aware, force. They enforce an unwritten code of conduct, where respect, humility, and sustainable practices are key. Their stories are often cautionary tales, showing the dire consequences of greed, disrespect, or arrogance when venturing into the domain of these ancient powers. Much like the transformative curses of Zelda's Lost Woods, encounters with these real-world guardians often result in profound, sometimes terrifying, changes for those who trespass or transgress, becoming lost, driven to madness, or simply disappearing without a trace, absorbed into the folklore of the region. These spectral guardians are, in essence, the conscience of the wilderness, the ghostly immune system of the ancient woods, always vigilant against those who would disturb its slumber or defile its sacredness. So, we've journeyed from the pixelated dangers of Hyrule's lost woods to the tangible, whispered dread of Earth's most haunted forests. We've met Stalfos born of digital curses and Walgeisters sprung from ancient European soil. We've seen how both fictional landscapes and real-world wildernesses can become places of disorientation, fear, and profound, often spectral, mystery. So, what is it then, this ghost that guards the forest, that our title promised to reveal? Is it a single entity, a specific type of spirit? Or is it something far more complex, more deeply woven into the fabric of both nature and our own minds? The truth, as it often is with such widespread legends, isn't some simple ghost that can be caught on camera or neatly filed away. Instead, the ghost that guards the forest seems to be a multifaceted archetype, a recurring idea that shows up in countless forms across cultures and stories, both ancient and modern. It's a powerful symbol, a story we tell ourselves about the wild and about our relationship with it. One of the most fundamental things about this guardian ghost is its role as the personification of the unknown and the untamable. Deep forests, just by being what they are places where our senses can be overwhelmed, where paths vanish, and where the familiar rules of civilization just don't apply. This inherent otherness of the wilderness easily lends itself to the idea of an unseen presence, a consciousness living within the trees and shadows. The rustling leaves become whispers, the snap of a twig becomes a footstep, the disorienting landscape becomes the deliberate act of a trickster spirit. The ghost is, in part, our attempt to give a face and a motive to that primal fear of being lost and vulnerable in a world not entirely under our control. Beyond that, these spectral guardians often embody the conscience of the natural world. In countless tales, from the Kirupara punishing poachers to the Haldamoer avenging a felled elder tree, the forest ghost acts as an enforcer of ecological balance and respect. These stories aren't just meant to scare. They're packed with moral lessons about sustainable living and the dangers of unchecked exploitation. The guardian spirit becomes a symbolic representation of nature's ability to push back, to defend itself against those who would harm it. In this light, even the Stalfos and Skull Kids of the Lost Woods, while born of a curse, also serve a protective function, keeping the unworthy from reaching sacred sites like the Master Sword's resting place. They're the grim consequence of disrespecting the forest's unspoken rules. The concept of the liminal space is also super important to understanding these legends. Forests, particularly deep and ancient ones, are often seen as thresholds between worlds: the world of the living and the dead, the mundane and the magical, the known and the unknowable. The Lost Woods in Zelda is a perfect example, a gateway to sacred groves and a place where transformations happen. Real-world haunted forests like Aokigahara or Hoyabachu are similarly seen as places where the veil is thin, where strange energies bleed through, and where spirits can cross over. The guardian ghost often presides over this in-between state, acting as a gatekeeper, deciding who can pass and who gets trapped between worlds. Psychologically, these stories might also tap into something deep inside us. The forest can be a mirror, reflecting our own internal states. The fear of the unknown, the guilt of doing wrong, the awe of something truly grand, all can be projected onto the landscape and personified as its spectral inhabitants. The ghost might be, in some cases, a manifestation of our own anxieties or our collective unconscious, a way of externalizing and grappling with complex emotions and big life questions. Ultimately, the ghost that guards the forest revealed isn't one single, definitive specter. It is the enduring power of myth to explain our relationship with the wild. It is the echo of ancient warnings about respecting the earth. It is that shiver down our spine when we stand at the edge of a dark wood and feel, just for a moment, that we are not entirely alone. It is the Stalfos clattering in the digital depths, the Leshy peering from behind a Slavic birch, the Kirupara flitting through the Amazonian canopy, and the eerie sighing in the dense silence of Aokigahara. They are all pieces of the same core truth, that wild places possess a power and a mystery that demand our respect, and that when we venture into their depths, we enter a realm where the old stories still matter and where the guardians, in whatever form they take, are always watching. The true reveal is that these legends, whether from a game cartridge or from centuries of folklore, tell us as much about ourselves, our fears, and our need for connection with the natural world as they do about any literal spirit in the trees. The ghost is a reflection, a warning, and a perennial mystery. The forests are full of whispers, and every culture has its own tales of what lurks in the shadows of the trees. What about you? Share your own local legends in the comments below. What spectral guardians are rumored to protect the wild places near you? We'd love to hear the stories from your corner of the world. And if you felt that shiver of the unknown while journeying with us today, and you want to explore more mysteries like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. That way, you won't get lost in your feed, and you'll be the first to know when we venture into the next enigmatic legend. So, we've traveled from the bewildering, digitally rendered paths of Hyrule's Lost Woods into the very real, very chilling depths of haunted forests across our own globe. We've seen how the idea of a spectral guardian, a spirit that protects the sacredness of the wild and punishes those who disrespect it, is a powerful and recurring theme, whether it's crafted from pixels or whispered through generations of folklore. From the cursed Stalfos and mischievous skull kids of the Legend of Zelda to the countless Walgeister, Kiruparas, and Urii that fill global myth, the message comes through with a haunting consistency. Forests are not just collections of trees. They are liminal spaces, soaked with memory, power, and often a kind of awareness that demands our attention and our respect. The legends of their ghostly protectors serve as cautionary tales, as ecological allegories, and as profound expressions of humanity's complex relationship with the untamed natural world. The ghost that guards the forest, in its many forms, is perhaps less of a literal phantom and more of a profound symbol, a symbol of nature's enduring mystery, its capacity for both beauty and terror, and its timeless power to inspire awe and a healthy dose of fear. These stories remind us that even now, there are frontiers that remain untamed, secrets that lie hidden, and ancient energies that still hold sway in the deep, silent places of the earth. So, the next time you find yourself at the edge of a dense wood, as the light begins to fade and the shadows lengthen, pause for a moment. Listen closely. You might just hear the faint echo of these ancient tales, a reminder that you are a guest in an old domain, and that its guardians, in whatever form they take, are always watching, always waiting. The forest remembers, and its legends live on.